Hello, you guys. What is up? Welcome back to another episode of My Thoughts Exactly. Thank you so much for tuning in with me today. I am so happy you're here. Happy Thursday, you guys. I hope y'all are having a great week. I don't know where you guys live, but I know here in Nashville, I feel like it got so hot overnight. It has turned into 90 degrees every day after being like 60 degrees every day. And I feel like that just happened overnight. The humidity is now at 80. I now feel like I'm walking into a sauna when I walk out of my front door. So spring lasted all of about 2 seconds. So I hope you guys are hanging in wherever you are. I know that it's only May, like it's middle of May, but I know Nashville, like the weather here changes constantly. I think I've talked to you guys about this before. Like Nashville really only does have 2 seasons, I feel like, and that is winter and summer. Everything else goes by with literally within the blink of an eye. We don't really get fall very much, and we don't really get a very good solid spring. It just gets so hot and humid so quickly, and it also gets so freezing cold so quickly. So there's my little weather rant for you. But how are you? I hope you're having a great week. Again, like I said, happy Thursday. I know Memorial Day is coming up next weekend, so I'll talk to you guys before then. But I was just talking about that with my friends, so that's why it's on my mind. But I hope you guys are having a great week. Now, as you guys can tell by the title of today's episode, today we are talking about something that I think is so vital and crucially important that does not get talked about a lot or enough. And the reason that I even, started to think about this as an episode topic at all is because I've noticed on my TikTok a little bit over time, I keep seeing videos randomly pop up of people talking about how they feel pressure in their 20s. They feel the pressure to be further along in their life in their 20s. They feel pressure to have it all figured out in their 20s. And I feel like this is a topic that so many people can relate to. I know personally I can relate to it. And I was talking to you guys on Instagram this morning. If you don't follow the My Thoughts Exactly Instagram, it's just My Thoughts Exactly podcast. But if you don't follow it, I was talking to you guys this morning, running polls and just getting your guys' opinion on the pressure of being in your 20s and feeling like you're never good enough in your 20s, feeling like you're falling behind in your 20s. And it looks very different for everyone. And I can actually now confirm that because I had asked you guys just to vent about it in one of my stories that I had posted. And not only did you guys participate in that specific story more than you ever have for any other story that I had posted, and I'm not exaggerating. You also shared very different views of how you feel pressure. For some people, it looked very different than others, and we're going to get into all of that. But I think how I wanted to start this was explain, because everyone's journey in their 20s is so different. Everyone's journey to get to where they are today is so different. And because I have a little bit of a unique spin on it, I thought I would give my take from it, and then we would get into more so the overall general basis of it, and then get into what you guys had to say about it. Now, for me, growing up in my 20s, my early 20s, I'm 26 now. I don't know if that's considered middle 20s or late 20s. It can't be considered late 20s. It's middle 20s. But in my early 20s, even leading up to that, I went to college for 1 year, and I talked to you guys about this before. I went to Belmont University, which really isn't even a standard university. It is a arts school. I went for their vocal program because my academics just were not there. And I went to like I said, I went to Belmont, went to their vocal program. And after about a year of being there, I left the school because I was on academic probation. So got on academic probation. I left, and I decided in that the school itself wasn't for me. I kind of saw it as a blessing in disguise. I decided to kind of switch my perspective a little bit on it. And I started saying, okay, well, what do I want? What do I want out of life? What do I want right now? And I couldn't come up with a single thing. And so everyone was off at school. Everyone was out at university, and I was home. And that's when I really leaned into social media because I really had nothing else to do because I wasn't going to school. I was going to junior college classes for behavioral science, which was just a complete 180 from the vocal classes that I was taking at Belmont. But it was something that I was far more interested in than, again, leads into killer instinct and all of that. But, for that particular time, I was just trying to figure it out. And then I got into social media and YouTube and all of that. that. And then that really took its own course and has led to where I am today. Now, throughout all of that, it was not, I'm not going to say it was, social media in itself, it comes with its own set of challenges, but I felt a lot of times that I was comparing myself to the people that were going to these standard universities, who were going off and becoming doctors and nurses, especially, now I'm seeing so many people graduate from, law school and medical school and all of the different kinds of schools that you can go to get these, giant degrees and these, big adult jobs. And it's hard sometimes to sit back and compare, because for so long in my early 20s, I didn't have a lot of fear of feeling like I was a failure in my 20s, because I felt like, okay, yeah, I dropped out of college, but I kind of have my own thing going now, and I'm doing this, and this is what I want, and this is what I love. And now moving into the past couple years, when there has been a definite shift in my, the people that I'm around and the people that I look to on social media and the people that are around me in my, personal life, there's a definite shift from just being in your early 20s, young, fun, parties, college, all of that, to now people are starting their real lives. They're, like I said, going off, getting those big adult degrees, they're getting married, they're having kids, engagements, all of it. And it's really hard sometimes. It's something that I'd never really experienced before, because I never really, had a lot to compare to when I was in my early 20s, because mostly everyone I knew was just, in college and doing all of that. But now that people are going on and starting real life and becoming an adult, it's definitely a little bit of a shift, because now my mind is looking at all of these people who are, going off and having these, corporate jobs, and they are, like I said, starting families and getting married. And it's very hard sometimes not to compare yourself to that and not to feel like you are behind in life because you're not there yet. Now, for me personally, I know will probably never have a corporate job. That's just not where I'm going to be headed. I don't think. Let's hope not. But I do know that for other people, that's what they want. That's what they strive for. That's great. And again, that just goes to show the differences in what people compare to. There are some people that all they want is that big corporate job. So it just goes to show how different people want different things, have different goals, et cetera, et cetera. But now I'm also looking at the personal life side of it, of like, okay, I'm 26. When are you getting married? When are you having kids? And I'm lucky that, my family doesn't pry like that. It's not the people that are close to me, that like my mom or my parents or, extended family are kind of looking at me like, TikTok, when is it happening? But I definitely look on social media and I see people that I know that are at those stages, and it's hard not to compare. And a couple episodes back, we talked about, this fear of closing one chapter and moving into another. And I think that this definitely kind of falls into that spectrum a little bit and falls into why I was feeling those things, which is, I feel like in your 20s, you are kind of put into this idea of what should be, right? And it's not how it ever usually works out, but everyone's looking at you like, oh, you should do this, and that by the time you're this age, that age, whatever. And so I think for me, a lot of the times when I've felt this pressure of, oh my God, I have to get my life together, and oh my God, I have to be further along than I am, that's when I go back and I feel that nostalgic feeling of not having responsibility, of not having, much to worry about other than just taking care of myself and waking up and going out and being with friends, like the very, happy-go-lucky free life that I had in my teens and, kind of early-ish 20s, but just late teen years. So I think that that's something that's really prominent right now. And it makes sense when thinking about it, like, okay, yeah, I would think that I'm missing this certain part of my life when I'm constantly, questioning if I'm far along enough. I miss the times where I didn't have to worry about that at all. And again, it looks so different for everyone. And what I want to say, before just jumping into the general topic of it, is it's very clear that in our 20s, we are pressured to feel a certain way or to be at a certain point, right? We're pressured to whatever it looks like, whether it's the job, whether it's the family, whether it's where you live, moving out of your parents' house, whatever it is, we're pressured sometimes into thinking that we're not far along enough. And sometimes we get into our own head and we think, what can I do? And then we stress ourselves out, and then we overthink, and then we go into a spiral, and then it's a cycle, and then it just keeps going and going and going. What I'm going to tell you before we get into any of it is that wherever you're at in life, wherever you are at in this very moment, it's going to be okay. Whatever stressors you have, whatever you're thinking that you're not good enough, you're not far along enough, you're not, as successful as you want to be, whatever it is, it's going to be okay. All right. So that's the first thing, because I think sometimes we need to hear that. I think sometimes we need to hear that it's okay and that you're doing a good job, and that as long as you're doing your best and trying your hardest, that it is okay and that you are going to be okay. We often feel so much pressure from sometimes it's just society around us, and, social media, I think, plays a huge part in it. We feel so much pressure from the outside world of feeling like we have to fit into this box and do it at a certain, do everything at a certain point. And that's just not it just doesn't work like that sometimes. And I know growing up for me, when I was younger in my early teen years, I'm talking, honestly, I would say up to the age that I was 15, I always looked at people in their 20s and I was like, oh my God, they are adults. They have it figured out. They have it's all figured out. They have their life planned out. And now that I'm 26 years old, I could literally go back and laugh at 15-year-old me for thinking that 26-year-old me would have it all figured out. And I think that there's beauty in that. And me personally, what I've tried to do when I get into these points of feeling stressed and pressure that I'm not where I want to be, or I'm not, I'm not where someone else is, or I'm not doing what they're doing. And, I look on social media, because for me, I keep saying social media because that's just where I see a lot of these, comparisons happening. For me, when I see that, I have to remind myself it is a highlight reel. You don't always see the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's very, it's specific. Okay. But something that has helped me that I have tried to do is really change my perspective and change the tune of how I see my 20s. I used to see my 20s as the year where, adulthood started and I was going to have it all figured out. And I was, growing up, I totally thought that by now I'd be married and have kids. But now I'm here and I'm like, I don't want any of that. Not right now. I do want it eventually, but not right now. And I think that the way that I have now perceived my 20s, instead of it being these are the years where I need to figure my life out and I need to have everything done, and, society is telling me that this is the way that it needs to be, I've changed my perspective on it a little bit. And I've tried to remind myself in those times where I have those moments and those thoughts that my 20s should be the years of, yes, obviously you're an adult and whatever, but it should be the years of experimenting and having fun and living life and figuring out what it is that I love, because now I'm in a stage in my life where I am more independent. I don't live at home anymore. I, kind of just answer to myself. And obviously I have a wonderful boyfriend and a dog and all of that, and I live that life, but it's the years that I can have fun and enjoy and live life. But I'm looking at these years now more so as a new chapter, a new fun, exciting chapter. I mentioned this in that episode, that whole, carefree nostalgia that I have, I can implement that life into the life I have now. It's just going to look different. And the 20s our 20s are supposed to be the years where we're just figuring it out. And I don't know who made up the rule that we're supposed to, have it all figured out by now, but I don't feel like we should fall into that pressure that society is giving us that we're supposed to have everything figured out. I think your 20s are, like I said, the years to experiment, the years to figure out what it is that you like, what it is that you don't like, what it is that what your hobbies are, who your friends are, who the people you want in your life are. You want your funnies. Okay. You want your 20s to still be the fun years of your life. And there's a lot of doom and gloom, I realize, that people have put on their 20s because it feels to everyone like we need to have it all situated. We need to have it all figured out. And that takes the fun out of it. It takes the living and enjoying out of life. And so because of that, we've all kind of switched our mindsets to think that the 20s are like the dark and twisted years of our life, when in reality, they don't have to be. They really don't have to be. You can still enjoy your life. You can still enjoy experiences. And I know that there's a lot of hiccups that come along in the way, because I've read some of your guys' responses that you had to my question about just venting. When you guys were venting, I know there's a lot of hiccups. I know there's a lot of things that get in the way. There's a lot of roadblocks that make it seem inaccessible. But what I challenge you guys to do is just to switch the perspective a little bit and understand, and I understand that there are roadblocks, there are hiccups along the way, but also to be able to say, okay, instead of hating these years right now, I want to look back and say, you know what, at least I tried this. And at least I, went out of my way to do that. I got out of my comfort zone a little bit. Make those years and these years count. Make them exciting. And again, I know it's harder. It's like easier said than done. It's so much easier for me to just sit here and be like, it's so much easier for me to sit here and tell you guys these things, but I do think that like, screw the box, screw the box that society is like trying to put us in to make us feel like we have to have everything figured out. You don't. And also there's no time frame that you have to have things done by, if someone asks you like, what's your 10-year plan? Like, I don't even know what my plan is next year, let alone 10 years from now. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing tomorrow. So it's just a little bit difficult. It's a little bit hard to think like that. And also to that point, you don't have to have that 10-year plan. You don't have to have everything figured out, because guess what? You can have that 10-year plan if that's what you want. And like, that's so great, because some people do want that and it keeps them accountable. They have goals. That's awesome. But like, for some people with that 10-year plan, in 5 years, that 10-year plan can very well change. You could say, you know what? I want to be doing this in 10 years. I want to live here. I want to have this many kids or whatever. Then 10 years down the line, you could be like, oh no, that's not what I wanted at all. That's nowhere near what I wanted. That doesn't make me happy. That doesn't make me feel fulfilled. And I think honestly, that's the beauty of life, is that we get to change our minds. We get to change our minds on what we want. We get to pave the way for what we actually do want. And it doesn't have to fit into this societal box that we've been crammed into in our 20s. So I asked you guys on Instagram, I ran 2 polls. I said, how many of you feel lost? Okay, how many of you feel lost in your 20s? 98% of you said that you do, and only 2% of you said that you don't. And that 2% was 3 votes. I really would love to talk to those 3 of you and see what the key to that is. And I'm not being sarcastic when I say that. I genuinely want to know. Maybe you can help us all out here. And then I posted another poll from a story that says, do you feel pressure from society to be further along in life than you currently are? And 96% of you said yes, and 4% of you said no. So again, that just goes to show you that you're not alone if you're feeling like this. And I think oftentimes when we're in this mindset, we do feel alone. We feel like everyone else has got it figured out, because that's all we're seeing and that's all we're hearing. We're not hearing that other people are also struggling with this. We're not hearing that, other people are going through the same thoughts and situations that we are. All we're hearing is that we're not doing enough. We're not, doing as much as someone our family knows, or someone our friends know, or whoever. We're always being compared to other people, because that's just how it's always been. And especially, when you think about it, like years and years and years ago, as a 26-year-old, if this was like way, way back, I probably would have already had like 6 kids by now. So it's just like, it just goes to show how much times have changed and how different things are. But a lot of people still get stuck in that mindset that that's still what's supposed to be. But it doesn't have to be. If that's what you want, then like go for it. And this isn't me like bashing on people who have like, gotten married early or had kids early or whatever. If that's what you want, like, and that's your situation, like, love that for you. I truly, truly, truly do. And again, I sometimes get jealous. I get baby fever. Like, I totally get it. But again, everyone's everyone's situation is different. Everyone's wants, needs, and goals are different. And I think that as long as you're doing whatever makes you happy, whatever makes your heart and soul happy, that's what's most important. And it's sad that we're made out to feel like we're not enough, or that we're not, at a place in our lives where everyone expects us to be. And truthfully, like I mentioned, as long as this is my belief, as long as you were trying your best, as long as you were doing your best, like your true, honest best, you can look yourself in the mirror every day and say that you are doing your best, then that's good enough. I always just feel like if you're doing your very best and you're trying, then that is good enough. But it's not easy out there. Like, the world is not an easy place to get through. And it's just, that should be acknowledged as well. Two things can be true at the same time, that you can be trying your best, but you also can be knocked down in the process, just because that's how the world works sometimes. But I don't want you ever to feel like, you're a victim of that, or that you feel like everyone's against you or anything like that, because I think it's easy to get into that mindset as well, as just feeling like, oh, well, screw it, because, everyone already thinks I'm a failure or whatnot. I would say to that, if that is your mindset, then to kind of switch the narrative a little bit. I'm always the type of person that when someone tells me that, like, oh, I'm not doing enough, or if I'm not working hard enough, or if I'm not whatever, my whole mindset is that I want to prove them wrong. It lights a fire. It motivates the hell out of me. And I think that sometimes that can be very beneficial, just to prove people wrong. That's going to look so different for so many people based on their own idea of what they want for their life. And I think that there's so many different factors in this. So I'm going to shut up, because I just feel like I'm rambling at this point, and I'm going to get into what you guys had to say, and you're venting. This is what I said. I said, vent about pressure in your 20s. We'll discuss some of the answers in the episode. And like I mentioned, you guys have never answered to me more than you did for this one, which I just think is interesting. But the first one says, I am 21 years old and still a junior in college, and people make me feel bad, like I should be graduated at this point. To me, what I would say to that is, at least you're going to school. At least you're trying to further your education. At least you're trying to get there. Everyone's education journey looks so different. I dropped out of college. Like, everyone's education journey looks so different. People are still going to college in their 40s and 50s and things like that. Like, people are going to college all the way, like, when they're senior citizens. Okay. So you being 21 and a junior is not a bad thing at all. I would say that that's amazing that you're continuing your education and you're trying to further yourself along to evolve into what your goals are for your future career. The pressure of getting a steady job, married, a house, and just overall having your life together. I totally can understand this whole idea of having the picket fence life with the kids and the marriage and the house and, the dogs and all of the things. And it's stressful, because as a society, we're almost like preconditioned to think that if you don't have that you have somehow failed in life. It's stressful to think that if you don't have the picture perfect idea of what society wants for you, or what they think is best for you, then you're somehow doing life wrong. But that's not true. You don't ever have to have the picket fence house life if that's not what you envision for yourself. You could live in an apartment and never touch another person for the rest of your life if that's what you want, and you still are doing great in life. Okay. It's you're not failing or anything, but the stress of having all of that, I totally can relate to, but just again, it's okay. The pressure to party and go drinking, but I want to slow down and start a young family. Okay, do you guys get what I'm saying? Because the differences in these answers are so interesting, because some of you are saying, and this goes throughout the entirety of these answers, some of you are saying, I want kids, I want marriage, I want all of that, I want it now, that's what I want. And some of you are like, hold the brakes. That's not what I want. And I don't want to feel the pressure of having to do that. I just think that that's so interesting, because it goes to show that everyone's idea of what they feel the pressure of is different. And everyone's idea of what they expect from themselves is different. So for this one, what I would say is, if that's what you want, if you want to settle down and start a family, then, screw the partying, screw the drinking, and screw the people that are making you feel pressured in order to feel like that's what you have to do at this stage of your life. Just because some people want to go out and party and stay up late and drink a bunch and whatever, because some people want that partying lifestyle doesn't mean that everyone has to have that as well. And it's very interesting because sometimes you'll see people in like their early 20s or something and they'll just be like, yeah, I just don't drink, or yeah, I'm sober. And sometimes they get looked at sideways because in those early years, people expect you to be like living life and going out and partying or whatever, when sometimes that's not what everyone else wants, and that's okay. Feeling pressure to finding a committed and long-term relationship. This is very interesting. I feel like I can make a whole episode about this because, again, we're all like conditioned and pressured to think that like we have to find the person that we want to marry at like 25 and then get married at 27 and have kids by 29. Like it's this weird timeline. It's like the unspoken timeline. It's this unspoken timeline that we're all told about. And I would say the worst thing you could do in this situation is lower your standards, or, you know, just accept the next person that you start dating just because you want a husband or want marriage or want a life, or not a life, but you want that lifestyle and want kids and all of that, and just accepting the next person that you end up dating just because you want that. Like never lower your standards just because of that, because the person that you have kids with, you will have for the rest of your life. They will be in your life forever. So choose them wisely. Okay, I got a picture for this one. I'm looking at it now. I don't know if I can fully read it, but I'm going to try. I am 25 and just graduated from college. I feel behind because most people my age have graduated or have been graduated for a couple years and have moved on with their lives, careers, marriage, families. Meanwhile, I am living with my parents, struggling to find a job. I am not where I want to be in my life, and my situation has put me in a dark place. I just want to feel like I'm not alone and looking for some words of encouragement. Oh, I can give you words of encouragement. Okay, here we go. As I've mentioned earlier, everyone goes through life at a different pace. And just because you are not at the place in your life where you expected yourself to be, or where all of your friends are in their lives with marriage and families and kids and all of that, I think that personally, I would shift the perspective and shift the narrative. If you can't tell already, just from by listening to this podcast and all the other ones in the previous episodes, I like to do that a lot. I like to shift the narratives a little bit because it just helps with mindset, and it helps just with the perspective on life a little bit. So for you in this situation, I would shift the narrative to, even though I'm not there yet, even though I'm not where everyone else expects me to be yet, well, even before you get to that, I would ask if that's what you want. If that is what you want, do you want that life that all of your friends are having, that everyone around you is having with the marriage and the family and the kids? If the answer is yes, then just understand that you're only 25. And that's what a lot of us have to realize. We are still so young, and we're under this stress and this pressure to have everything figured out, right? I don't know who put that rule into place. I really, really don't. But we're under this, stress to have it all figured out. When you are only 25, you just graduated, okay? You don't need to have it all figured out. It will all fall into place when and how it's supposed to. I personally am a huge believer in everything happens for a reason. Everything falls into place the way it's supposed to. That's literally why I have 32 tattooed on my wrist, because if you look into the angel number 32, you'll get it. But it essentially just means that everything falls into place the way it's supposed to, and to have faith in the process. And I think that that's really what's a big component here, is having faith in the process, that everything will fall into place the way it's supposed to. You said you've had a hard time trying to find a steady job. I always look at it as rejection is redirection. You are being redirected to the spot in the place where you were supposed to be. And who knows, maybe you meet your person there. Maybe you meet a coworker who knows someone, it's like everything will make sense in the end, but don't put so much pressure on yourself to have it all figured out now. You're living at home with your parents. I did too. I think I lived at home with my parents until I was 24. I know I did. I moved out when I was almost 25. I moved out like 3 months before my 25th birthday. So I understand that. But don't let this idea that you are falling behind and that you are failing in life make you feel like a failure, because you're not. You graduated freaking college. You're working towards getting a job. Has it been the easiest road? No. And we can acknowledge that, but we can also say, okay, we are being redirected to what path is meant for us. And we don't have to worry about the outside noise. We don't have to worry about fitting into this, box that society is putting us in. It's all going to work out the way it's supposed to. I truly believe that. I feel pressure to feel like my 20s should be the best years of my life, which feels like such bullshit. Okay, I totally can relate to this because I feel like everyone says, oh my God, your 20s are the best years of your life. And all we've been doing in our 20s is stressing. We get stressed. We get hit with the reality that is being an adult and responsibility and, taxes and everything. And so I totally can relate to that because there's so many times I've just been like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what am I doing? And I just feel lost and I feel like I don't have it all figured out. And not that I need to, but again, like that pressure that comes with being in your 20s and like trying to figure it out. But again, that is when I switched my perspective to just being like, okay, I'm not going to force these years to be my best years. I'm not going to force these years to be like the greatest, most fun years of my entire life. Because if I force that, then I don't feel like it's going to be genuine. And I feel like I'm just going to kind of be faking it the whole time. And I'm going to be so focused on like making it the best years that I'm not actually going to enjoy it, if that makes sense. So I get it. I really get it. I wish I had some like greater advice on that one. But again, I think it's just about perspective and saying, okay, I'm not going to force these years to be the greatest years, but I'm going to have fun, in these years. And I just know that sounds so freaking stupid, but like, again, as I was saying, like experimenting, just trying to like live life a little bit more, saying yes a little bit more to things that you want to do, making friends, all of the things, but don't put pressure on these years to be the best years of your life because that's just, I feel like that's backwards. I just finished my junior year of college and I still have no idea what I want to do. I don't think that you have to. And maybe that's naive of me to say. I don't know. I didn't go to college at all, really. So I don't really know how that process works. I know you need to pick a major and all of that. But like, just because you pick a major now doesn't mean that has to be what you do for like the rest of your life. Does that make sense? I know so many people who have majored in one thing and then ended up doing something completely different with their lives that they would have never expected. I know one of my friends who graduated with a degree in like restaurant management. Is that a major? It was like somewhere in that realm. And now he is a lawyer. Okay. So it just is different. Things can go unaccording to plan, and that is okay. And they probably will go unaccording to plan. And it's just our job to rally with it. So even if you think that your life is going to go one way, it probably will change a little bit, and that is okay. But also don't feel pressure not to figure it out. You're a junior in college. Again, we're so young. We really are so young. Life moves very fast, but we are very young in this moment right now. And you don't have to have it all figured out, despite what society is trying to tell you and despite what schools are trying to tell you and all those things. You don't have to have it all figured out. Everything is a competition, even if no one says it. The pressure from parents also. Okay, yes, this is like I was saying before, I feel like social media is one big competition. And again, I can only compare it to social media because I never went to college. Really, I never did any of that. So I can't compare it to like that environment. But what I can say is looking on social media, I truly believe that it is one big competition. Everyone's trying to one up each other. Everyone's trying to have the better picture, the better announcement, the better event, the better everything. And it's hard sometimes to keep up with all of that. And sometimes it can really make you feel like you're falling behind. But again, it's important that we switch our mindset to understand, okay, this is all a highlight reel. Everyone always puts their best image, face, foot, whatever forward. And it's okay to remind yourself that you don't have to be in competition with everyone, even though it feels like it. I really struggled with this a lot growing up, and I've talked about this with, my parents and stuff, so it's fine if I say it. But growing up, I was definitely compared to a lot. And this was like when I was really, really young. I'm talking like, elementary school and like middle school mostly, when I would get compared to when it came to, friends of mine and friends that like kids of parents that my parents knew. Does that make sense? Like my parents' friends' kids. And they would always say, well, so-and-so got this grade on the test, or so-and-so is doing this summer, or so-and-so is going here. And it always made me feel like absolute shit. I always felt so terrible, and it always just hurt me so badly because it was a constant reminder that they felt like I wasn't doing enough. And granted, again, we have talked through all of this. We are good now. I love my parents more than life itself, but it was a really hard situation to go through. And that was just in middle school. But what I've learned from that over time is I don't give a shit. Okay. I don't care what other people are doing with their lives. And that's not like on like some bitchy, note. That's just me saying that the only person that I am in competition with is myself. Okay, I'm not trying to compete with anyone else, my friends, acquaintances, strangers. I don't care. I'm in competition with myself to be better than I was yesterday. And if I can do that, then I'm golden. That's it. Now, something that a lot of you have talked about again is living with your parents, the fact that you're in your 20s, whether that be your early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, and living with your parents. I got that one a lot, and you felt the pressure to move out because of your age, and you feel like you can't move out because of the economy and finances and all of that. What I will say is I do hope that if you are in the situation that you have a good relationship with your parents. I was lucky enough that when I was in this situation, I had an amazing relationship, and I still do with my parents. And I'm really blessed and lucky for that. And if you are not as fortunate to have that, and if you don't have the best relationship with your parents, the advice I would give is just to, try and save up as much money as you can. That way, ultimately, you can set a goal to move out at a specific time. I think goals are huge. I think goals are super important. And I think that if we don't have goals, we're kind of just like free floating, and it can get a little bit overwhelming in and of itself. So I think, again, it's super important to set those goals. So if you are in a situation that you don't like and you want to remove yourself from, that you can set a goal of, this is when I plan to move out by, this is how I'm going to do it, this is how I'm going to save XYZ. And if you are in a situation where you just feel like you're too old to be living at your parents' house, but you like your parents, at least you're saving money. Okay. I had kids young, my first one at 17. I graduated high school on time, and I have 2 more kids. I work full time, but not the job I want to have. It's not a career. I'm going back to school, but feeling so far behind at it. Okay, again, this whole idea that we had to graduate college at 22, like you go to college at 18, you graduate when you're 22, your life starts after that, adulthood, marriage, kids, like have it all situated, is just this made up concept that does not need to exist. You going back to school right now to start, or whenever you do end up going back to school, to try and set a solid foundation to get a solid long-term career for yourself, I don't think there's anything to be embarrassed of about that. I think that there is such strength in that. And for you to be able to recognize, okay, the job that I have right now isn't suiting me. I want to be able to provide and be sustainable for my kids and all of that. So this is my plan and goal to do that. I think that's fantastic. I think that's amazing. And if there is some sort of shame or embarrassment or pressure because you're not, you're a little bit older than everyone else, I don't feel like there should be any shame or pressure there, just because at least you're doing it. You're making yourself a better person. You're evolving yourself, and for not only for yourself, but for your children. And again, I think that's amazing. And I don't think there's anything to be, ashamed of about that. I graduated college this past month, and I feel so lost, and I don't know what to do. This is a reoccurring theme of feeling lost and not knowing what to do. And I wish I could wave a magic wand and be like, ta-da, this is what you're going to do. Sadly, I can't. But what I can tell you is that, like I mentioned earlier, the path that you're waiting to carve out is currently carving itself. And maybe that doesn't make sense. Maybe that was just trying to be too much of a philosophical metaphor. But what I mean by that is you're waiting for the next step to happen, right? You're waiting for the next step to be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do next. I have a plan. And in that process, right, of trying to figure it out, you feel lost, you feel overwhelmed, you feel like you don't know what you're going to do with your life. You feel like everyone is moving forward and you're staying stagnant. But like I mentioned, I truly believe that the path is being carved out as we speak. So all of the pieces of the puzzle that you're waiting to come together are currently making their way towards each other. And I do think that this whole idea of needing to have everything figured out by the time you get out of college is ridiculous. We spend so much time in school. Then we get out and it's like, okay, figure it out. It's like, what? I don't know. I just feel like even for someone who didn't go to school, didn't really finish college, I would have no idea. Honestly, if I'm being truthfully honest, YouTube just kind of I didn't expect it. I just started it and I tried it, and it just, it made its way, and it was never something that I thought was going to be a job and a career. And I'm very lucky that it turned out the way it did, because I have no idea what I would be doing. I think I would be doing something in law enforcement, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But this whole idea that we're supposed to have everything figured out, is insanity to me. I think that's so insane. And I think that so many other people are in that same boat. And so sometimes we feel so alone in these thoughts that we're having of feeling lost and the feelings that we're getting from that, and like feeling that everyone else has it figured out and everyone else is moving and I'm just stuck and I don't know what to do and I don't know what's next. And that's a horrible feeling to be in. It really is. And I don't want you guys to feel discouraged from that feeling, because it can be very discouraging. I understand that it can be disappointing and discouraging and kind of like, again, lost and overwhelming. But I don't want you to feel discouraged and alone, because clearly I haven't even gone through I've only gone through a quarter of these messages. And I think we can all agree that a lot of you guys are feeling the same way. And there's so many people out there that are feeling exactly how you are. And I just feel like this whole idea that we're supposed to have everything figured out by the time we get out of college, and our 20s are the years where we're supposed to figure it out. Like, says freaking who? I don't know. I understand that that's like kind of how life works. Like but again, who says that we're supposed to? I don't know. I'm making a lot of questions up in my head as I go, but I understand that our 20s we're becoming adults and we're getting it figured out and we're getting it situated. That's going to look so different for everyone. It's going to look so different for everyone. And so just because you see one person doing it one way does not mean that you have to be the carbon copy of that. It does not mean that you have to do it the exact same way. You can very well be on your own path. You can kind of pave the way for the life you want to live. You don't have to kind of just follow the herd of what everyone else is doing just because you don't know what else to do, especially if the herd of what everyone else is doing is not what you want. Okay, here's the last one. I'm 24 and just got out of a long-term relationship. I thought I was going to get married soon. I'm feeling behind in all aspects, moving, career, relationship-wise. Getting out of a long-term relationship can definitely make you feel like you just took 10,000 steps back, because oftentimes, and hopefully when you're in a long-term relationship, you see a future with someone. You see a life with someone. You see kid, or well, if that's what you want, you see everything that your future holds within that person. And so when that person is taken out of the picture, it can make you feel like you really took 1,000 steps back. But I challenge you to switch the perspective on that, because as I was saying earlier, I think rejection is redirection. And whether you initiated the breakup or they initiated the breakup, I think that either way, you now have a clean slate. Instead of feeling behind, I think that you should feel liberated to be like, okay, I'm in a position now that I was not in before. I'm in a position now where I can do what I wanted to do. I can be independent. I can choose the path for my life that I want and not have to worry about someone else's opinion along the way. I get to be selfish. I get to choose what I want to do. So I would just kind of change that a little bit, because I wouldn't necessarily see that as a bad thing. I'm sorry you went through a breakup, and I know that really sucks, but just see it as a way now where you can decide, okay, do I want to go to school? Do I not want to go to school? Do I want to move somewhere completely different, or do I want to stay? You get to create your life now, and I think that's a really cool thing. Okay, now I'm going to move on to some of the longer questions that you guys wrote in my inbox. And I do want to say that a lot of the questions in that question box were kind of repetitive, just in the sense that a lot of you are going through and feeling the same things. So instead of stopping at every single one, I just kind of lumped them in where I thought would fit. And I'm pretty sure based off of that I kind of covered all the bases when looking at those questions. So now I'm just trying to get to the more individual ones that I feel like I didn't get a chance to fully elaborate on. But if I didn't answer your question, it's because I hopefully feel like you got some sort of clarity from my, 50-minute long, as of now, rant. I'm attending college all online while working. I feel like I'm missing out on the college experience and making friends. I spend most of my time with people older than me. I often feel like I'm too old for people my age because I'm in a different part of life and too young to relate to my coworkers, all while trying to figure out what exactly I'm passionate for to pursue in a true career. Please tell me there are others. Love your podcast. Well, thank you so much. I think that I can really relate to this because I didn't really have a lot of a college experience either. And I think it's easy to feel like everyone's out there living their best life when you're just kind of like sitting there being like, okay, what's next? Now, in terms of finding what you're passionate about and what you want to pursue for your full-time career, I think that that's just going to take some trial and error to figure out what you're passionate about. Writing down some things that really just kind of light you up and light up your world, and what hobbies you really like to do. And I think through there, you can kind of narrow down the options. Also, just trying out different things, trying out different hobbies, seeing if something sticks, to see if there's something out there that you're truly passionate about that you can then evolve into a long-term career, because there are a lot of things out there that would allow you to do so. But in terms of feeling like you're in this weird middle ground with the friends and the friendships, making friends as an adult is so hard, especially because so many of us are just in so many different parts of life and different sectors of life. So you could feel like, being friends with your coworkers because they're too young, you don't fit in with that group, but you don't fit in with the older group either. I would listen to my How to Make Friends as an Adult episode. And my biggest takeaway from that is I'm really big on like Facebook groups and Bumble BFFs for trying to find just different friends in your area. I think that that's a really big thing. But again, I would just go back and listen to that episode because I talk about it a lot there. But there are other people out there. I felt the exact same way. I felt entirely the exact same way watching all of my friends go to college and just feeling like I was never going to experience that. And I didn't really experience that. To this day, I still really haven't experienced that, but I don't miss it now. I felt like I was missing out at the time because I felt like everyone was out there living and I just wasn't really doing. Not like I was just working. And I loved it, but like it was just work and I was just working. But I don't miss it now. I think I just missed it at the time because I just thought that that's what everyone was doing. And I thought that that's what I was supposed to be doing. And I felt like I was kind of doing something wrong by not. And I just missed having that social aspect of my life because like I mentioned, like everyone went off to college and I was just at home. And you have to make your own fun sometimes. But I do think that Facebook groups and Bumble BFF and things like that are a great way to find friends that you really connect with, because there's so many different people out there that are also in the same exact boat. All right, you guys, that is going to be the last one today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of My Thoughts Exactly. I hope that you guys got something from this. I feel like I just kind of went on a really long tangent and rant, but hopefully you picked apart something from it that helped you, or at least made you feel a little bit less alone, because we are all in the same boat, just in different ways. So I hope that it helped a little bit. But with that being said, you guys, that is all for me today. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of My Thoughts Exactly. I love you guys so much. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode for you guys, and I can't wait to see you there. Bye, guys.